guys, it's Miss Reed. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd, and today we're doing lesson 9, rocks, grammar, and morphology. So today is going to mostly be a review of using quotation marks and commas correctly, and also using root words and our vocabulary words. You won't have any additional reading to do today, but you have a Google Doc to do, and you have Google Forms to do. Here's your lesson objectives for the day. So punctuating sentences, that includes dialogue or quotes, using complete sentences using words with the word roots, and using words that have familiar roots. So this is review. We have done this last week. I want to say it was either Thursday or Friday. Commas and quotation marks. So I saw a lot of kids had issues with this. So make sure you're paying close attention and listening to this, but also watching the guided practice for when I will show you exactly how it's done in certain sentences. So commas and quotation marks. So one way quotation marks are used in writing is to show that a statement has been taken directly from another text and is being quoted or written exactly as it appears in the text. Example, the text states, comma, quotation mark, erupting volcanoes are dramatic natural events, period, quotation mark. We use a comma to show a pause and to separate the first part of the sentence, the text states, from the second part of the sentence, erupting volcanoes are dramatic natural events. Whatever is being directly quoted or taken from the text needs to be in quotation marks. Now, it's pretty easy when you have a straight up quotation that says the text says blah, 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 blah. But we have something that makes it a little bit more complicated. We have split and interrupted quotations, which means that the sentences are split up so that the quotation is like in part of the sentence and in the other part of the sentence, and we're giving like a speech or dialogue tag in the middle. So with the same sentence, the example is, quote, erupting volcanoes, comma, quotation mark, the text states, comma, quotation mark, are dramatic natural events, period, quotation mark. So remember that we need the commas to separate the different parts of the sentence, what's actually being said out loud from just the speech tag or the dialogue tag, the text states. The quotation marks are used only around what is directly being taken from the text. So the only thing that came from the text that was said out loud, like if somebody was speaking, would be erupting volcanoes or dramatic natural events. The comma after volcanoes still separates what's being quoted from the text tag, which is the text states. So we don't want to put quotation marks around the text states because that's not actually being said out loud. Like the text is not saying I stated, like that's weird. So you're only putting quotes around what's actually being stated in the text. And you need to have a pause. Like we can't just run through this whole sentence without taking a breath. The comma after states, the text states, separates what the text does from the second part of what's being quoted. So remember, we're not going to put quotation marks around the text states because that's not actually something that's being written straight up in the text. Like that's what we're saying. We want to have quotation marks around whatever the text is actually saying, which is erupting volcanoes are dramatic natural events. So the commas are separating what's actually being said from what we're saying, and it's also signifying a pause. So this is some guided practice for you. Watch what I do here, watch my form of thinking so that you can do the same thing when you do your practice on the Google Doc. So the text states, Earth's crust is made almost entirely of rocks. So what is actually being said out loud? The text states, well, obviously the text is not going to say the text states. The text states, Earth's crust is made almost entirely of rocks. So I can conclude that what is being said is Earth's crust is made almost entirely of rocks. So right out the gate, I'm going to put quotation marks around, starting here, Earth's crust is made almost entirely of rocks. And I'm going to put the quotation mark out here on the outside of that period. But in order to separate the text tag, the text states, from what's actually being quoted, Earth's crust is made almost entirely of rocks, I need a comma and I need a pause here. As I would say, the text states, Earth's crust, and notice that I naturally do a pause there, so I need a comma to separate what is actually being said from the text tag. Number 2, I wonder, he said aloud, if I will ever get to visit the Grand Canyon. So you can already see, like, obviously what's actually being said out loud is not he said aloud, right? Like that's telling me, that's the speech tag. It's telling me what he's actually saying and who's saying something. So out of the gate, I'm going to mark off that with commas because I know like that's the text, that's speech tag. I wonder, he said aloud, if I'll ever get to visit the Grand Canyon. So I'm going to put a comma after I wonder because that's obviously something that's being said. And I'm going to put a comma after aloud because that's the end of my speech tag. So you can see that I've separated this speech tag or dialogue tag, whatever you want to say, he said aloud, from what I think is being actually spoken. So it says, I wonder, he said aloud, if I'll ever get to visit the Grand Canyon. So what's actually being said out loud, it needs quotation marks, is I wonder, I'm going to put my quotation marks around on the outside of my comma, if I will ever go visit the Grand Canyon. So I need to put another quotation mark around if, and end it at the end of the sentence after the period, if I'll ever get to visit the Grand Canyon. Cool. Number 3, I have seen, she exclaimed, evidence of weather and erosion. Okay, so she exclaimed is obviously not something she is saying out loud because she's starting talking with I have seen. So I have seen, she exclaimed, evidence of weather and erosion. So I'm going to block off, she exclaimed is obviously my speech tag here, like it's telling me who's saying something. So I'm going to block that off with commas. I'm going to mark it. So I have seen, comma, she exclaimed. I'm going to put another comma after exclaim because that's kind of separating the speech. Well, it's not kind of. It is separating the speech tag from what's actually being said out loud. So what's actually being said out loud is I have seen. Now I'm going to put the quotation after the comma. And she's also saying out loud evidence of weather and erosion, and make sure the quotation comes after the period because it's the end of the sentence. So you can see this is exactly, exactly what it should look like if you have different interrupting quotations or split quotations where the commas should go. The commas are supposed to set apart the text or the speech, the dialogue tag, from what is actually being quoted or what's actually being said out loud. And the quotation marks only go around what is actually either being taken word for word from a text or around what is actually being said. So you are going to complete the Google Doc on quotation marks and commas. Look at what I just did for my guided practice. Make sure you watch that actually, or you're not going to be able to do this probably correctly. Remember that if the Google Docs are incomplete, you will not receive credit for the assignment at all, and you will not be entered into the pizza raffle. So when you get onto Google Classroom, you'll see commas and quotation marks Google Doc. Open it up. These are what you're doing. You only have 6 of them. Make sure you put the commas and the quotation marks in the correct space. If I get your assignment and nothing is done, I'm going to return it to you. If you send it to me more than twice and it's incomplete, you're going to get a 0 because it needs to be done. Make sure you're doing your best work. I know you can do your best work. You just watched me do it. After you finish the Google Doc, you are going to review the root word rupts, which means to break or burst. These are examples. This is review. You've done this before. This is reviewing the vocabulary words that we went over last week. So after you go through the vocabulary words, review them again, you're going to complete the Google Forms. The first section is identifying which word with the root rup should go in each sentence. So when you click on it, you'll see the first part is you're choosing the correct word to go in the blank. The second part is working with the correct vocabulary spelling word to complete the sentence. Again, show your best effort on the Google Docs and Forms and fully complete them in order to be entered into the pizza raffle and earn credit. If you are going through, and let me see how many total points there are on this. This is like, there's definitely like at least like 15 points on this. So if you're getting like 1 or 2 or 3 out of 15, I know you're not fully doing the work. You're not putting forth your best effort because, one, the spelling words are, the vocabulary words are right here. And I just went over how to do the different things that you need to do. So if you're not giving your best effort, we can tell. And you're not going to receive credit for it, and you're not going to be entered into the pizza raffle. So make sure you're doing your best work. There's a lot of you who are doing a very, very good job and trying your best, and we're very proud of you, so keep it up.